All right, we are live. Today, we're going to talk about how to start a side hustle while being a young working professional, specifically around building a YouTube channel, podcasts, online communities, and also monetization with sponsors by interviewing Christine Wong, a Googler, former technology consultant, and YouTuber in New York. Welcome to the Inner Creator with Peter Su, a podcast dedicated to helping creators learn more about the art and business of being a creator through sharing inspiration and tools from creators that we think are cool and have inspired us. Ultimately, we want to help you improve your inner game, your mindset, confidence, and emotional well-being. I'm your host, Peter Su. I'm a former investment banker at Goldman Sachs, turned singer-songwriter, turned content creator here in San Francisco. And today, our special guest is Christine Wong. Christine was born and raised in New York with lots of ambition and very little time. When she's not working at Google as a Google Shopping advertising solutions architect and enjoying her free iced matcha lattes at the Google cafes, she's working on her YouTube channel niched in tech careers and tech consulting, recording podcast episodes of Boss Woman, and running all over the city as a professional cat sitter. Oh, and she's a mom to her very own 3 kitties. She's built up a community of more than 7,000 subscribers and 4,500 members of tech consultants from over 100 countries. And she's basically been killing it as someone that helps young working professionals. I've been watching a lot of her videos and her podcast episodes. And for someone to do all this while you just bought a condo in Brooklyn, you just got engaged, you're doing all these amazing things. So yeah, Christine, thank you so much for joining the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Well, today was a crazy day at work, but that's just typical at Google. But I'm happy to be here.
Okay, nice. Well, can you tell us just a quick warm-up question? What's one of the videos on your channel that you've had the most fun making?
The irony is that like my niche is in technology consulting and tech careers, but the fun videos are not related to that. Because I feel like those are mostly on answering questions I get all the time. So in some cases, I actually do those videos with some kind of anger of like, why isn't this out there yet? But the ones that I find fun are the ones that I'm like not even really trying to film or really trying to edit. So those happen to be like the travel vlogs, because while I'm editing, I'm really like reliving the actual trip itself. I think there's one particular video that I thought was really fun because of just how it transpired. So that's actually ironically one of the best, maybe actually the best video right now that's performing on my channel, which is on NFC business cards. This was something so random because I saw ads on Instagram. I was like, okay, let's see what this was. This is interesting because everyone's going back to the office, so this might be interesting to me. So I ended up reaching out to one of them, and then I start to realize I get targeted for all the ads on all of them. So I started reaching out to all their Instagram accounts, asking to say, hey, would you like to send one over for me for free so I could review it? And then that video ended up being really interesting because I reached out to the CEO of one of them, and they basically paid to get all the cards for all their competitors. And I did an honest comparison on it. So even though it's not related to my niche, it's not really fun because I'm not necessarily doing a travel on it. That was just like an interesting video to be able to do that.
Yeah, just like no pressure, just explore NFTs. You ended up talking to the the
Oh,
management.
NFC business cards. It's not NFTs.
Oh, NFC business cards. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, everybody like on YouTube, I think it's safe to say like you are the technology consultant YouTuber on YouTube. Like everyone knows you as and you have that your community of your technology consultant community. It's like more than 4,000 members. But before we get into all that, can you just tell us a little bit, like start at the beginning? I know you grew up in New York. Can you tell us a bit about just what were you like as a kid? Did you have any childhood dreams?
Yeah, as a kid, very similar to how I am right now, and you could just see a cat just popped up there. I wanted to be everything. I wanted to be an accountant, a fashion designer, a teacher, a psychologist, a geneticist, literally everything. And I just did not have the time, the energy, and sometimes even the intellect to do something like genetics. Like I sucked at everything in bio except for genetics, but I can't do that then. So it's like things like that where I was just interested in very different things. So I just knew that I was a curious person. Every time I ask my parents like a question, they're like, Google it. And I just Google it. And then I go into like a Wikipedia whirlwind on there. But then after that, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do for my life then? Like, am I going to be in business? Am I going to go into tech? And I did an internship in high school. I'm glad that my high school had some kind of program like that, where I was like, okay, I want to do tech and business. But at that point, I didn't know what there was in that area to do both without doing hardcore coding. And at that time, I was like, okay, you know what? I'll just do business major then. I was actually really pursuing an international management or business concentration because I was like, I want to travel. Why can't I just go do jobs where I can travel and get paid at the same time? And then later on, I realized consulting was basically that, but I don't have to focus on international business. So while I was in Boston University, I realized like, oh, look, there's a business and technology business fraternity. And that's what I ended up being one of the founders of and growing it. And from there, because of the fact that I was one of the starting members, I was able to kind of craft the kind of programs we had, the events we had, and naturally the people I was around. So I was exposed to technology consulting because one of our brothers at that time was in Accenture. So I was like, okay, cool. Let me ask you a little bit about Accenture. And I was like, why didn't I find this out before? It is perfect. It's business and tech, and I get to travel. So ever since then, I've been pursuing my career in technology consulting. And unfortunately, when it came to Accenture, I thought, okay, I could try all these technologies, try all these industries, exactly what everyone said it was going to be. But they saw my background in finance, management, information systems, and strategy, and said, you're going into Workday Financials. I'm like, this is defeating the purpose of why I came to Accenture. So in the end, I parted ways and I went for a role that I actually wanted. So I actually did not even know what solutions architect was. It was actually something that I was like, oh, okay, it does basically the same thing as technology consulting, but it gets retail. And I have retail experience in the past. I love to shop too, so it helped. And from there, I was at Google, which is one of the dream companies I've ever had. It was Google and then Accenture. So when Google reached out, I was like, hell yeah.
I think it's crazy because I was watching your 1 year review from being a new Googler to a 1 year veteran. Congrats, by the way, on finishing your 1 year after the Pi Day where you started. Well, so what really stood out to me was that you enjoyed technology consulting, but from what I remember, you were saying that you didn't have a choice in choosing to
Right.
do the Workday financial implementation at Accenture, but at Google Shopping, you got to know it was an option and you could choose to do it or not.
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
think having your own kind of doing stuff you want to do, that was super cool that you call that out. And I guess that leads to the next question of like, when did you start your YouTube channel and why did you start it? Because I think it's so hard for, I think, young professionals, anyone that's working, especially at places like Accenture or Google, to think of doing things on the side, like side hustles, things that are creative, things where you put yourself out there. Yeah, could you just tell us a little bit more about like when and why you started the channel?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I had interest in so many different things. And one of the things that I wanted to do is an entrepreneur. But at that time, I was like, I'm not really the type of person to take risks and go all in on that. So I wanted a job where I could be an entrepreneur, where I can do cool, innovative things or be able to try new things within safety so I can like get a paycheck. So from that particularly, I'm not the type of person to quit a job and go straight for it. So when I saw like, oh, I could do a YouTube channel, low lift. I can easily do that. It doesn't cost anything. I, at the time, was actually using my camera I was using for photography, which sucked. And then after that, I used my boyfriend's camera. So I still spent $0 and that worked out. So in the end, I, of course, like started to invest in more equipment, but it was just really low lift because at the time, my professor in strategy, he actually, and I have a panel that I'm going to be on for 2 weeks in 2 weeks for him, but
Nice.
he was shuffled over so many consulting interested students and they always ask the same basic questions. What is technology consulting? How's your life? Do you really travel? And I'm like, really? Am I spending all this time on these calls? Like I will say yes to the call, but the questions that I get on there are just so repetitive. At a certain point, I got really upset. I was like, all right, I'm going to stop wasting my time. I'm going to make a video. So next time someone asks me that question, I'll send my YouTube channel or I'll send that link. And now, like to this day, I thought I would get fewer requests, but now I get even more because it's a global scale on LinkedIn. And then I just send the video over. So I still save time. So I mean, in some cases, I do waste some time on sending the links over because they say, oh, I found your video from this video, but they didn't check all the videos, which granted, I doubt they're going to be scouring through all the videos I made. But that's really like what started it all. And at that time, I was like, do I start a blog? Do I do a podcast? Do a YouTube channel? I kept on feeling like if I did a YouTube channel, it's just my experience. And that's actually what started the podcast is I can talk about my experience. I could talk about my friend's experience, but still not a comprehensive experience of everyone in the world and every type of consulting firm. So that's what the podcast did was I brought people in, different people in different tech world. So it's not even consulting. And now actually like my podcast has kind of turned more into like a woman in tech kind of niche.
Wow. So that's a really cool origin story. It's like, it really started from just
Anger.
questions, people, anger. Yeah. The real answer. No, but yeah, it's like everyone asking you the same question. It's funny, actually in college, after I got into banking, a lot of younger students would ask me the same banking question.
Yeah.
So but this was like before, around when YouTube was starting to take off, but I just made a PDF. So to try to scale my time, I didn't have YouTube like you, but that's like, so you start with a question, now you have all these videos and you basically have helped like more than 4,000 aspiring technology consultants. Like, what keeps you going? Because a YouTube channel, I know, helps you scale your time instead of having to do, like a 30-minute call with like 100 people about the same topic, same questions. Like now you can send one video, but like to keep making videos, like to keep and doing you've done like what, more than 60 podcasts, and you've done a lot of videos. Like, yeah, what keeps you just like hyped up, like doing it all? Because when someone goes to your channel, I can feel the energy from like your channel, the videos. Like it's like, dang, like, and then then it's like, oh, the podcast link, the Facebook group link, the website to the technology consulting group. Like it's yeah, there's so much energy going into it.
Yeah, the answer is two-pronged. One is that I feel like I'm a very angry individual. So a lot of it is actually from my parents. So they would be like, hey, Christine, you're an Asian woman. You can't do this. You're going to have to eventually have kids. You have to become a mother. Why are you going for a career where you're in a male-dominated area? And I was just so angry at that. So a lot of times I'm just like, in the back of my head, I was like, I want to prove them wrong that I can do all of this. And so that's kind of like the starting motivation. But then later on, I start to like what I'm doing. So I'm doing it for myself. So the YouTube channel, actually, the funny thing is like I first shared this to my mom, like probably 20 videos down. She didn't even know I was doing this. And she was like, why are you wasting time on this? You should be focusing on your job. You should be focusing on doing X, Y, and Z, not YouTube. This is stupid. And then after that, she starts to see how I get views, how I get subscribers, how I get monetized. She didn't know I can make money off of it. And so that's actually something that I started a lot of things that I was like, hey, like she kept on saying, you're going to be a mother and you're going to be a wife. Those are the two things that you're going to be. And that's very traditional Chinese mindset. But for me, I was like, I can do more than that. Like, why are you limiting me to just those two roles? I can do much more than that. So a lot of times, actually, it kind of is the bane of my existence sometimes because I do a little bit too much and then I get burnt out and then I have to kind of scale back a little bit. So because of that, I have to kind of learn that, okay, yes, I'm doing it to prove others wrong or that I can do this myself, that I can balance this all. But at the same time, I need to value my mental health as well. So for example, the podcast I used to do every single week, now I've kind of changed it to once a month to be able to maintain the level of quality while be able to have a happy life.
Yeah, I heard you on one of your podcasts talking about that and how you shifted it. And I was like, I've been doing this every week. And I'm like, I think I'm going to do it like take a break every like 3 podcasts so I can just so it's cool to hear. Yeah, it was cool to hear like, oh yeah, that's normal. You don't have to keep, everyone says be consistent, make a video every week for like 10 years straight. Like it's good to hear. It was good to hear. It's like value your mental health, like so you can keep doing it. Well, can you like, because I know it was like if someone scrolls to like your first videos, it's like you vlogging in Norway. It's your kitten Dawn. It's your cat's birthday. You're making boba from scratch. Like, so you did a lot of different topics. A lot of new creators. It's it's hard. Maybe you didn't have the same issue, but like, how did you find your niche? I guess it found you, but can you just kind of elaborate a little more how you decided what to talk about?
Yeah, technology consulting was probably when I was like, okay, I'm going to be serious on YouTube. And so the videos before that was really for my own sake. At first, I was actually, there's a lot more videos that the public doesn't see. I unlisted them because I knew I was going to get real. I didn't want people to show me, like, look at this thing that you did in fifth grade. This is really sad. I'm like, yes, because it's in fifth grade. So I used to do a lot of multimedia projects, and I think it was middle school, and I loved videos. And that's why I did a lot of them since then. One of them was like a commercial for the Oscars, completely random. It was an assignment, so I did it, but I was so happy of it. I put it up there. The other one was like a music video, and I had my friend actually do it for me. Like, she acted it out. That's unless, I think that's unless, I don't know. If you can't find it, it's probably there. But there's a lot of different videos that I did back then. And then for whenever I went on travels, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick up the camera and record. I was not taking it seriously. So you're going to see a lot of shaky cameras. You're going to see a lot of like spots and holes in the timeline where I just probably even didn't film a whole entire day, because back
Yeah.
then I just like basically took whatever I had and put it together. And at that time I was still learning Adobe Premiere Pro. So while I was working on those travel vlogs, I was learning how to video edit as well. And my friends actually were critiquing me the entire time, saying like, why is this video 50 minutes? It could really be 10 minutes. So I was really honing my craft in by that point. And my friend actually is Michelle Lamb. Her book is out, by the way, just shameless plug. And she is like a YouTuber as well under Mute Tripled. So she was a big motivation as to why I did YouTube, because I send a lot of those vlogs to her, and some of them she's actually, in a lot of the travel vlogs, she's in there, and she gives me a lot of critique about like, you could have cut the pacing here, you can time it to the music here. So I learned a lot of Adobe Premiere Pro. I learned about the process of creation, the process of vlogging from her, or at least from their critique. And then from there, I start to say like, hey, maybe I should do a YouTube channel, Technology Consulting. When I was still figuring out what medium I should take, she said, do YouTube, because it helped her, for her. Her niche was on helping animation, helping people pursue a career in animation storytelling. So that's what she did. So mine was just going to be a different focus. I didn't follow everything she did, but I learned a lot from her on like what I should be doing, focusing on that. She wasn't really a mentor. She barely watched my videos because it's not her niche. She did not care about it. So it was really the travel vlogs that she watched and gave me a lot of critique. So the videos on Dawn, the videos on my own cats, they're all random videos I did. The boba one was something that I just randomly was doing on a work day, during a work day. And I just picked up a camera and randomly did it. You'll even see that the color is off. So I was still learning like white balance there. But there's just like each video I did, I learned a lot. And that at a certain point, I've got a whole system down where if you're watching this right now, this is probably the view you get from my videos, because I kind of have a system down on what to do. And because of that, the process gets a lot quicker, when before I would be taking like maybe a whole day to film or a whole week to edit. Now it only takes me like the exact duration of the video is the exact duration of the time I film. So I cut a lot of the ums and uhs. I cut a lot about like what I should be saying, what I should not be saying, the organization and the script of the actual video. And then after that, the editing, because of all the editing I've done in the past, each video made it easier because I have shortcuts and I know exactly how I want things done, the exact font I want for my text, the format of the actual start and end title. And then I just really do it. Honestly, I'm not really being that innovative here, but a lot of the videos I'm doing is talking head like this. So I don't have to be so creative. It's just the content people care about, not really all the funny, fun photos or GIFs or anything like that.
Yeah, it's so with your whole workflow, like how long does it take for you to do like the whole process from coming up with the topics, title, thumbnail, shooting, editing, posting it?
Yeah, I try to plan the content a little bit, so that way if, for example, someone found me through a travel vlog video and they're going to come onto my channel thinking they're going to be seeing travel vlog videos, but they're seeing all these technology consulting content, I try to do an equal balance where I do some travel, some if I have travel, some personal, some career related, some tech consulting ones. So when they come and land onto my page, they see all the content I do and it's predictable as to what I'm going to do. That if I get like 50 travel vlogs at the same time, I'm going to definitely lose people because they realize like, oh, did Christine change her niche? Is she only doing travel? That's not the case. So I try to space it out with content that is generally majority of the content I'm doing. So career related, technology consulting, some travel or work vlogs that are combined, then I would do that instead. So I kind of plan it in that kind of way. And then from there, usually the ideas I have are things that I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to do more career related or tech career related or tech consulting related content. And I just literally take my phone out, I put it on the notes. In the past, I had a whole Google sheet of all these ideas and I just marked it green whenever I did it. I did all of them now. So I kind of have to be a little bit more innovative about the ideas I have. And now I'm just like writing them down when I'm like, okay, today's content creation day. At that very same day, I'm writing the title and I'm writing the bullet points of the actual concept that I'm talking about. I don't write a script at all. I just kind of look at the bullet and then I just kind of go off at it. And then editing is where I clean it up. But I've gone to the point where I don't really need to edit too much because I kind of have an idea because I'm coming up with the idea myself. So naturally I know what to talk about. So when it comes to that, I usually film 3, 4, maybe 5 videos in one sitting.
Whoa, what? How long does that take you to shoot? That's like epic.
It could take 2 to 3 hours. I take breaks in between videos. Sometimes it gets really hot in this room because I'm talking now. I'm like getting hot right now, actually. I get really hot and heated from just talking about something. And this room has no ventilation. So I have to walk out, get some air, and then come back into the room and go all over again. But you can if you look at my videos, especially the thumbnails, you could see sometimes I'm wearing the same clothes. That's a good way to tell I've been filming all on the same day. A little hint there, but and then after that, I kind of edit throughout the week. So if I usually film on a weekend. So like a Saturday or Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I edit each video. On Monday, one video, Tuesday, one video, Wednesday, one video. And then I just kind of do thumbnails all at the same time. So I kind of have a backlog of like 3 to 4 videos. And I usually leave one aside to do it in another week, depending on how my work schedule's like. And then for my podcast episodes, I usually do on a weekday in the evening time. And those are really easy to edit. I just have to format it and then put the text up for the actual question I asked. So there's not much editing for that other than maybe like pauses or technical difficulties, which I always have on podcasts for some reason. So I fix those and then those go right out. And the podcast episodes come out on Tuesday mornings of the same week that the video comes out on that Thursday. So there's like a whole process I go through. I usually try to also space out the podcast episodes to normal content. So if you get like 5 podcast episodes back to back, you're going to be like, hey, where's the actual content? What if I don't want to watch a 1-hour video? So I have to be very strategic about the content I put out and the order it even comes out in.
Wait, that is crazy. So you shoot like 4 to 5 videos in about 2 to 3 hours on a Saturday-ish. Then you Monday through Thursday, you edit each video and then you batched your thumbnails. And then you also shot your podcast on the weekend. Wait, when do you edit your podcast?
So I usually do the podcast episodes or record it during the week. And then those are easy. So usually the next day or maybe like, I don't like to do editing on the weekends, to be honest. They take a lot of time, unless it's a travel vlog. I'm reliving it. And they do definitely take a lot more time because it's like multiple clips as opposed to one clip. I just kind of cut out all the outtakes. So I usually do a lot of the editing on the weekdays, including the podcast video and audio editing.
Whoa. Wait, how long does it take to edit the podcast? And then also like say one of those videos that you shot, that you batched out of the 4?
Yeah, the podcast episodes are usually longer just because they're longer in videos or audio. So let's say, for example, a 50-minute podcast episode. I actually, when I edit, I speed things up 2 times because I know what they're saying. And sometimes I can see from the audio itself, like, oh, someone's talking, and then I cut where I see there's a break. So sometimes I don't even listen to them because I know they're saying, like, I was in that conversation. So I know nothing was wrong. If I know for sure they said like, hey, can you cut this out? Then I'll pay attention to that particular timestamp. And I look at the clock on like my screen. When I do that, I write it down and I make sure to take a look and that general proximity to cut that out. But for the most part, I'm honestly not listening or watching the podcast episode unless there's a technical difficulty. I look at the audio and I kind of cut out the breaks, or whenever there's like some conflicting audio, like a siren in the background, then I cut that part out.
Got it. So that's the podcasting. And then with your video edits, would it be like it takes like 2 hours or something on that Monday or that Tuesday? Like,
Shorter, if anything. So let's say I have a 20-minute video. It takes me 20 minutes to edit because I again speed it up and I have a whole process. I open another project open from that has the same format I'm looking at, and I just copy paste the end, like the end screen that where the video just kind of like minimizes to a corner, and then I have the same format or the same template of the actual end screen, and then the actual text itself. I have a general set. I don't really set the exact color, but I have a general sense of the area in the color chart of the text. And I have the same font, the same size, and then everything else just kind of cut based off of where I think there should be outtakes. And generally there's no outtakes. So it's just an easy video, unless there's like a video I'm trying to show or a photo or a thumbnail. That takes a little bit more time, but it honestly is like maybe 5 to 10 minutes beyond the duration of the video. And then everything else is just waiting for it to export. Then I go to the living room and I watch TV.
That is amazing. Like if a 20-minute video takes you 20 minutes to edit. See, like yeah, it's crazy because I took this YouTube class, like Ollie Abdal's YouTube class, and he talks about like trying to stack the deck in your favor and like things like production, like getting high production and all that. And I think that's helpful. But then in that same class, I've had like classmates that are like, someone took the cohort like 3 months before, and he's in the next cohort with me, and he still hasn't made a video because I think that like people get way too into having the perfect story, the perfect script. Like, you know, you talked about how you shot next to your friend who had like every line was delivered a perfect way, and then like the lighting and everything has to be. And then I know a lot of people that actually have not shot a video because they're obsessed with like looking awesome and stuff. So hearing your workflow and seeing like your output is very inspiring. Like, can you tell us like a little bit about because I think a lot of working professionals, it's really hard when they're thinking like, hey, I gotta do a good job in my day job, or my job. It's like, I'm already stressed enough. And then I need to have time to be a good partner or good family member, good friend, all that stuff. Right. Like, can you take us through a typical day in your life being a full-time Googler and a part-time YouTuber?
Yeah. Honestly, ironically, my cat sitting side hustle takes more time than YouTube in total because of just how much manual effort there is to like scoop poop and feed food. But honestly, it's okay. Let's give you today as an example. Actually, not today's not a good example because I'm on this live. So my fiance is the one doing the cat sitting. So I'll give you yesterday as a great example. Yesterday, I went to the office and then I literally did work from start to end at like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then on the way from the office, I had gym clothes under it. I just took off like my top that, I mean, I'm too much revealing there, but it's a sports bra under. And I took the subway directly to a Pilates class that I was doing with my fiance. And then right after that, we took a drop-in visit, 2 drop-in visits for cats that are in that exact area. So I planned it a little bit to have that class in that area. So it was easy to just walk over there. And that was 3 drop-in visits. And then by that point I was back home, it was 8 p.m. So we actually ordered food to arrive by the time we were going to be home. And at that point, honestly, I like I said, I batch on my content creation. So this week was not one of them. So I actually had that for another week. But this week I basically did nothing for YouTube except for this live. So that's pretty much it. Is like cat sitting is more consistent. YouTube, I kind of batch it. So one week is like the content creation week. I make sure. And one of the things that why I batch it too is like, I don't like to put makeup on. So I kind of want to do it and then get it all done at once. So I don't have to put it on every single video. Right now I'm not wearing makeup, so it doesn't really make sense. But at the same time, I was just like, how do I make my life as easy as possible? Because I'm balancing all these things out. So I batch it up. And I also have to like gather my creative energy all at once. And when I'm in a video, I kind of go all at it versus if I have to go back in another week, then I have to go back into the zone to do the same video. So it's just easy to concentrate all that energy at once.
That's great. That's awesome. Like, but what does it look like? What does your schedule look like a typical day when in that batching content week? Yeah.
On the days I film or on the days that I'm editing?
Let's say an editing day.
Okay. Yeah, so that is actually pretty similar to what I would already be doing up until the point where I come back from like either a workout class or a drop-in visit. Right after that, I would have dinner and then I would start sitting here, which I have a 49-inch like ultra wide monitor that I do all my editing in. So it's actually easy to have the entire timeline all in one page and I just see the cursor just move and then cut, edit, and then I have all of my keyboard shortcuts. So I'm not really like moving and clicking buttons. I'm doing everything on my keyboard. That just takes literally 20 minutes. And then after that, I just like, as it's exporting and processing, I go to the living room and I watch an episode of whatever I'm watching at that time. Come back, I see it's exported. I move it into YouTube. I put in unlisted and I just kind of do the copy and I do all the hashtags. I do the thumbnails like on a later day, like probably on a Thursday or on a weekend, depending on how I feel. And then from there, I put the thumbnails up on for all of the videos that I'm doing for that particular week. And it just kind of waits until it's time for it to be uploaded or, I mean, premiered or public.
Wow. So would you say like time management wise in a given month, you probably spend like for 3 weeks, you're probably spending like 30 minutes on YouTube and put your podcast. But then for a week, you're probably spending what, like, I don't know, 6 hours or something like.
Yeah, pretty much.
That is insane. That is insane. That's very impressive. Well, like, okay. Cause like, well, how do you, so it sounds like you're really good with time management and you just plan it out, execute, iterate, improve. But how, in terms of like mind share, that's a lot to think about, right? Like your full-time job, cat sitting, like spending time with your fiance, doing the YouTube, the podcast, the community. Like, how do you, I guess, balance that all in terms of just your energy and your mind share? Like,
yeah, I learned a lot from college and from my first few years of my career that I have to be the person that's in the zone. So I know that if I want to do everything, I do it all batched up in a certain period of time. So for example, cat sitting, I put it all in one area. I know it's going to get a lot of steps in because I'm like going from all over the city, but I don't like to just break my flow, like go in the middle of lunchtime, go do a drop-in visit, come back, do work, and then go back out. I kind of like to plan things that way. So my schedule literally looks like this. I plan everything on my calendar well in advance. So whenever we have like a new week, I look at my calendar, I move things around to make sure that it's most optimal to what I like to do or what I'm doing. So for example, the workout class was right in the same area as a drop-in visit. I planned it that way to make sure that I optimize my time that way. So a lot of it is really planning, but at the same time, I leave room for flexibility. Like, let's say, for example, I have this live today. So in the end, I like collaborated with my fiance who's 50-50 on this cat sitting business with me. He went to do it instead. And then I said to him, if this live is done by that point and you're still doing it, then I can come out with you. So it's a collaboration in that kind of way. So I have a lot of balancing that I have to do. But a lot of times Google's very easy because I know it's 9 to 5 and everyone there respects it. Sometimes the client doesn't respect it, but we reset their expectations on that, depending on the time zone they're in, because California, they're still thinking I'm working at 8 p.m. Eastern. But YouTube, it's easy for me to segment and say like, okay, this particular weekend I will film. And then from that point on, the weeknights, I would be editing. And I don't really plan that much, to be honest, on a weekday, except for like a Friday night particularly. And then my social calendar, honestly, is non-existent. I usually have friends that are all introverted or all over the place. So it's hard to kind of balance things out with them. And I also don't like to go partying or clubbing or drinking or anything. So honestly, a lot of it is like, either I'm doing my own thing with my businesses, my personal endeavors, or I'm out there enjoying, like once in a while, I go have fun with a friend that I see like every 2 months. So it's not even that often that I do something like that, but I'm happy with that. I know a lot of people, they're craving for that social interaction. Thankfully for me, it worked out to my advantage because I have more time to myself and do things like this.
wow. I still can't believe it takes about like 6 hours a month to do all, because your YouTube output is so like prolific. Wow. Because it takes me like, sometimes it takes me like 30, 40 hours to make a video. Like, well, when you script, how long does it take you for you to script? I know you're kind of like doing it in while you get ideas, but like.
Let me give you an example of a script that I actually, oh yeah, this one I've done. This is how my script looks like. There's a title and then I put bullet points and then that's all I get for the entire video. And then when I look at the text, because I already have a mindset of why that's on that script. I already have a script already in my mind as to what I'm going to be saying. So honestly, I don't really care. I don't pay attention to the timing. I have a sense by now from, and this is actually where people say, hit record, don't like stop waiting, just do a video, because you'll get yourself into a rhythm and understand what works for you. So for me, I have a general sense of like, okay, when is something getting a little bit too long? Maybe I'm rambling a little bit. How do I bring it back? How do I bring examples back so people can relate to this content? It's like, I think I said this to a friend actually today, that creativity is a muscle. You have to keep on exercising it. If you don't exercise it, it's just going to go stale and you're going to have to get back into the groove. So that's why I kind of like to batch it too, because I know that like I'm in a particular mindset. Honestly, a lot of the mindsets that I have, the way I talk in my videos is the same way I speak to clients. So I'm already trained to, okay, I have a 30-minute meeting. How do I make sure I get this all down the line and make sure we're on the right path? So literally, I kind of tune in my client facing mentality, and then that's pretty much what the video is. I'm explaining it to a client, I'm explaining it to a friend, what I'm doing, what I'm trying to say. That's what I try to channel.
I love it. Channeling the inner consultant, like just getting into client facing mode, walk through the deck, boom. Well, I think one thing that really stands out to me is that about just watching your videos, listening to your podcast, is that you, whereas a lot, like I struggle with it a lot sometimes. Some of my creator friends from like the P2IA class, like perfectionism, like we, yeah, it's like almost paralyzing at times. But it seems like you don't really, have you ever had to battle with that? Or do you feel like your muscles just so strong, you just keep going? Like,
I have a whole video to this because someone asked me, like, actually, even before this live, we were talking about this, is that I was filming a collaboration video with my friend Derek May, and he particularly is pretty new to YouTube. He doesn't do YouTube videos as often as I do, or as disciplined as me. So I can see the difference, because for him, each time, and I'm the one editing this video, so it was annoying for me. He just constantly says a sentence, sounds exactly the same to me, but then he just rewords it, or say it in a different tone, or say in a different kind of delivery. And I'm like, you just wasted 1 minute to say one sentence. Come on. So for me, I was just like, I'll just kind of wing it. Like you saw my script, like I leave a lot of room for error, but people don't know that I'm trying to say something and I made a mistake, because I try to make it more natural. I try to make it more freely. But if you make it in a really like almost like you're lecturing someone, I just know that if I was listening to this, if I was watching this, I would not want to watch this. It's just like, what I go to YouTube not to see a professor. I go to YouTube to get someone who's personable and a little bit more interesting to talk to, almost like you're talking to a friend. So I try to channel that exact thing. That a lot of the ways I try to channel myself too is that those exact calls I'm talking to those students, answering those questions, is the same exact way I do in the videos. So I kind of practice that muscle even before I hit record. The only difference is that now the video's on. So it's pretty much the same for me. The only difference is that if I mess up, I kind of like in my mind, it's actually very similar. Like I said before, when I'm talking to clients, I might mess up in my head and then they don't know that though. So I just kind of twist it by providing an example, an analogy, and I kind of go down that rabbit hole. You might notice it in some of my videos that sometimes I talk about examples. They don't really make sense, but I made it make sense. That's probably a good example of how I made a mistake, but I tried to make it work and it kind of ended up working. So you're kind of seeing the behind the scenes here, but I essentially just BS my way through. But of course, with actual evidence and data.
yeah, with the real deal. Like that reminds me of this. There's like this, I think it's a quote from Miles Davis about jazz. Like, there's no such thing as a wrong note. Like if you play a note that sounds weird, just play a chord around it that makes sense. And it sounds like, well, how do you and I think one of my favorite podcasts I've listened to of yours is like how to not give an F. How do you? One thing that stood out was that you just detach. You don't care that much. Like you care, but I love what you said in the podcast. So a lot of people you've seen quit because they care too much. It's too much on the line. Like how did you get your mindset to be like, I don't care that much. Like I want to help people. I want to have a side hustle. But I don't care that much. And I'm just going to do it and keep improving, keep going.
Yeah, this actually is like a two-prong answer. The first thing was, why am I doing YouTube in the first place? If I really try, then I'm making this into a job, and I don't want to make this into a job. I'm going to start to be like, oh my God, my money's down the line. Like this is paying the mortgage. And then because this is actually why I will never do YouTube full time. I will never do something full time, except maybe my job, of course. But particularly when it comes to YouTube, that mentality means I have nothing to lose. I can make zero income. I can make zero videos. I will have no problem. Just focus on myself, focus on what I like to do. So when I do the videos, I mean, of course, in the back of my head, I was like, what if my manager watches this? But I'm still, like I said, I channel the exact kind of person I am when I'm with clients. Like if I'm with clients, I'm still not going to say something that my manager's going to be like, why did you say that? That's wrong. I don't say that. It's just naturally, I won't say those kind of things. Otherwise, I can edit it out. No big deal. So when it comes to those particular videos, it's pretty easy for me to just do it. And if I make a mistake, if I said a particular story that I feel like is going to hit the tone wrong, I can just edit it out. It's no big deal. It's really a huge mentality kind of thing that, in my opinion, I'm doing this for fun. So I'm just helping people on the way doing that. So, I mean, it's nice to see the money come in, but at the same time, that's not a huge motivation for me. The huge motivation is to see each time someone messages me on LinkedIn or comments and say, hey, you helped me get a job. Actually, the past weekend, someone stopped me on the subway station and say, are you Christine? Like, by the way, I know I had an offer at Accenture. I turned it down to get a job at Google. I was like, oh my God. And he said, I helped him. I'm like, really? I have only 7,000 subscribers and I helped you do that. So it's like things like that I'm like, I don't need the money. This is exactly what I was looking for. That like technically, if I were to do those intro calls on technology consulting with my students at BU, technically it's the same thing, but I'm not really helping them out. The content is like almost anything you possibly need to get any kind of content, any information, any training you need to get what you want to do in your career or in technology consulting. That was enough for me that like, technically I could package this all up into a course and sell it, but I didn't want to do that. It was just kind of stupid if it's already available online. So for me particularly, that's just something I like to do. So I feel like if I was doing this full time, you would be talking to someone completely different. But this is what I feel because it's a side hustle and I'm not relying on this income. This is like fun money. Like I have my full-time job is the one to pay the bills. Every other side hustle is just fun money at this point. So I have no real strings attached to it. And naturally, because I'm a really stubborn person, this is the second part. I'm a really stubborn person. I don't like to give up. If I see that I have a video that's coming up on Thursday and I don't have a video, I'm going to go film a vlog. And you probably can see that sometimes. I will film a vlog if I'm noticing that, hey, I'm running out of videos. This particular month didn't work out because I went traveling. So I don't have like the whole creative flow of like filming on weekends and then editing on the entire week. So those are the times I'm like, I need to get something out there. So I do a vlog and then I have fun with it. So, but I'm not going to be like, oh, I have to do a vlog because I have to do it by Thursday. I actually want to do it. And it makes me like, okay, how do I plan my day to make it look a little bit interesting? That's, to be honest, like that's what people do for vlogging. It's not truly a day. They're planning to make things still look a little bit interesting. But sometimes I even do really impulsive videos. And those are the ones that I like to do a lot.
That's all. So it's like if I'm hearing you correctly, it's like, this is really like for fun and helping people, and you make money, and that's like fun play money. It's
right.
So for you, you're not gonna, your whole like self-worth and identity isn't on the line, or like that's
exactly.
That's like very refreshing to hear. Well, and another one of my favorite podcasts of yours is the one where you talk about imposter syndrome, where you talk about how like growing up, so, like you were told by certain people, like, hey, you're not the person to be the CEO or the big shot. Mm-hmm. In college, because of like some liberal arts classes, you had like a low GPA when you were starting to recruit, and you overcame all of that to work at Accenture, work at Google, do your YouTube channel, your podcast, your online community. Like, I think that story of overcoming that imposter syndrome, because I feel like so many YouTubers, so many people in tech, in finance, we all like sometimes feel like we shouldn't be there. How did you overcome all that?
Yeah, Yeah, I went to Boston University, and because I was surrounded by so many high achieving people that kept on saying, like, oh, look, I got a 4.0 GPA. I got an internship at Morgan Stanley. I got an internship at X, Y, and Z. And I'm like a little bit jealous because when I look at them and like your requirement is a 3.8 GPA, I'm nowhere close. I'm like sub 3.0. And it doesn't mean that I'm dumb. It just means that I don't test well. The classes where I have projects, I get A's. I get like 4.0 on those particular ones. It's just I don't test well. I don't do well when it comes to multiple choice or really figuring out what the actual teacher's trying to get out of that question. So because of that, I knew I'm not going to be limited to my grades. I know how I am in certain particular areas. I knew my strengths. I knew my weaknesses. I worked on my weaknesses. So I was really trying to be intentional at that point of saying like, okay, I know I'm in business and I'm trying to do a business and tech role. How do I get that technical part of it? I don't need to be a CS major or CS minor to get there. I could just take courses that, like workshops that my school was providing for free. So again, very low stress, very low stakes in that particular one. I just do it. And then from there, like I have just like the mentality I come out of it is like, oh, I have this much things I have to do. I think about like, look at what I just learned. I learned a whole skill that helped me to do X, Y, and Z. So when I look at these job descriptions, yes, I may not have the GPA, but I have everything else. Not everyone else has everything else. Like they don't have experience. They don't have the technical skills. Maybe they do. But then when I do the networking part, that's where I kind of stand out a little bit because I feel like people who do well, this is generalization, but generally people who focus on their grades may not have like a well-rounded kind of background like everything else, like experience, projects, working in teams, getting the technical experience, being interpersonal and having that kind of thing on their resume to show off that. So I was able to kind of show off everything else except for the GPA. And then when I actually got my job at Accenture, I kind of asked my recruiter, like, why did you select me? Because when I got the interview for Accenture, the very first one, I was like really shocked. I was like, how did I get this interview? I don't have the GPA that everyone else has. I technically met the GPA requirement they had. They did not say it in the actual job description, but they had one and they said I met it technically. But when it came to what I had, they said, we like that you have leadership experience. We like that you had well-rounded background in both business and tech. We like that you had a lot of things going on. So it showed that you were well-rounded, like volunteering and project work. So this basically tells me, oh, you had a 4.0. That's why we selected you. They did not look at that for me. They were looking at everything else. So it goes to show at that point, I was like, wow, I love Accenture even more because I love that this is the lens you had for people. So for me particularly, that was validating that everything I did in college, even though I had a low GPA, even though my parents were like, why are you doing all these things? This is not related to your career. You should be focusing on grades. I was like, look, mom, this is the email they sent me. See, I can do everything else. I mean, of course I need to focus on my grades, but in my head, I was like, see, look at this. Like whatever you said, like could have been something you applied 20 years ago, but now it's not the case. You have to have a whole well-rounded kind of background and experience and also like a personality to show that off. So a lot of times during my interviews, like when I was in sophomore and junior year, I was so rigid. I actually looked like a robot. They asked questions and I answered it like a robot. But now I'm kind of like the way I'm answering now is the same way I would be in an interview. And that's exactly what I did for my Google interviews as well. So because of that, I was like, okay, it has proved me twice that I got Accenture. And then I know people like my content. So they like the person I show on YouTube, which I don't really change the persona I have. This is literally the type of person I am on a day-to-day. So it doesn't really matter. So like, why do I care about what people are saying? The only time I get imposter syndrome is honestly when I first start a job, which is at Accenture and which is at Google. But I know that I'm going to learn it anyways. And like you mentioned before, I finally hit my 1 year as a noogler. So the whole time I was like, oh my God, do I deserve to be here? But at Accenture, I was thinking that a lot more. At Google, I'm like, I'm just going to get there. I'll get there eventually. I might not be there like how my 5-year veteran on the team is like constantly knowing all the answers, constantly knowing what to do. She's kicking ass. And I was like, I want to be like her. That's great to aspire to be her, but I'm not going to like, I have to still do the work to be very similar to her, but I also not going to be her because I'm my own person. So I know it's okay to not follow a footsteps. I'll just do what she's been doing and just eventually pave my own way.
I love that. Like when I heard that your podcast and what you just said, it's like just so inspiring. Like we don't always have to do what everyone else does and what authority figures say is the only way to do something, or there's only one traditional way. It's like being yourself pursuing your interest, like hearing you talk about like you did all these things you loved and you kept doing it and you just leaned on your strengths of like people skills and it just led to Accenture and Google. And it was cool to hear like at Google, you used to ask your mentor all these questions every week, and
Yeah.
now you changed it to bi-weekly because you have less and less questions.
Yep.
And now you're getting like way more in the groove. Like, but so being at Google, working a full-time job at like a very well-known company, like how do you balance or how did you approach starting something that's creative and kind of putting yourself out there? Because when I was at Goldman, I think I never, it never crossed my mind to start a YouTube channel,
Mm,
even though it was taking off because I just thought it would be unprofessional and also because with banking, it's all this confidentiality stuff.
yeah.
So I just never touched it. But like, how'd you approach it in a way where your employer, it's all good. Like
Yep.
you're representing everything well. And you're being yourself. You're expressing yourself. You get to help people.
I had that same exact fear, which is why before I started my YouTube channel, like this is at the point where I did the resume video, which is the very first serious video. But before I did technology consulting content, I actually sat down with the Accenture global marketing and legal team. And I said, what am I allowed to say? What am I allowed to not say? And what are the nuances on what I can put on thumbnails or talk or put in titles? So I had that reassurance in email. So each time they had issues, I say like, look at this email. You said this. So I'm allowed to do it technically. So there was like one time where they reviewed my channel again. They said like, can you change the title? It was like how I got my job at Accenture. I had to change it to be consulting because they said they didn't want Accenture to be on the title. And I also had to change the logo a little bit too. So that was the only feedback they had the entire time. Because I had that reassurance from my job that I was okay to do that, I just went all for it. And I just did everything. I was constantly being very cautious about saying things that are proprietary information, or I would give it. And this is where I have friends that I would ask them about, like, how did you do it at this firm? How do you do it at that firm? So I'm not singling out Accenture. I'm talking about this is what I've seen in the industry. So I'm not necessarily talking about just Accenture. And sometimes I just talk about my experience. As long as I don't say the client or the exact nature of the work, I'm still talking about my experience. This is public knowledge because I think about when I was a student, what did I hear from people who were talking to me about it? So I pretty much reiterate it and just add some flavor of like what I actually did, just to like basically remove some of the details that I should not be saying. But there's like a lot of things where I have to be very careful about what to say. In my mind, every time I'm speaking, I'm just saying everything I'm thinking. And then I have like a natural self-filtering already to know, okay, I feel like this is risky. But if I don't know that, and then I'm editing it, I'm still listening to it and say like, I could cut that out. I can just like, maybe this particular part, I think I should edit out, but it's still going to be a good video regardless. So it's okay because honestly, live streams are my most nerve-wracking because what if I say something and I can't edit that out? So this right now is giving me it's like a lot of nerve-wracking experience, but right now I feel like the questions you're asking is mostly on YouTube and not so much on Google and Accenture. So I'm fine.
yeah. We'll keep it light and easy. How did your coworkers respond though when have they seen your YouTube channel? Because I think that's always a worry I had too. Like even when I was in venture capital, I started making I put out videos of me singing on my guitar and fortunately my fund was super supportive. They like played it in the office and stuff and like.
Oh.
But how did your because I think everyone's always afraid. Oh, what if my manager or my other friend sees this at work? Like, so how did that go for you?
Yeah, I posted everything on Facebook groups, Facebook page, my Facebook profile, my Instagram, my LinkedIn, but I don't send it to my coworkers and say, look at this video I just did. If they find me on LinkedIn, if we're connected on LinkedIn and they find it, we can talk about it. And sometimes it has come up. Like literally I was on one of my last like client calls before I was signing out of Accenture. They're like, Christine, you didn't tell me that you were doing YouTube. I'm like, oh, my client knows about it. But I'm like so happy that this was after I was about to leave Accenture. So I was so happy because otherwise they're going to be like, Christine, like, can you tell me about everything? Like the part I was most scared about, it was like, Christine, you have all this time to do this, but you don't have time to work on my client work. And that was the thing. I was like, I know that technically we have only 40 hours of the day 40 hours of the week to do actual work. But, you know, clients don't see that. They're like, you got to work around the clock for us. Like, you got to do exactly what you're told to do. So we say, oh, I'm busy this week. I knew the first thing they're going to think of is like, oh, you must be doing YouTube videos, huh? That's what you're busy with, right? That's what I'm always thinking. But then after that, I have a whole process down. So they're like not so concerned of it. If they ask me, I knew I had like an exact spiel of what to say. So it kind of shut them up. Thankfully, no one has really asked that because a lot of them have their own families. So naturally they have other things to do. It's like your job is not always what you're supposed to be doing 24/7. So in my case, I don't have kids, so I don't have to worry about it. I have YouTube. So pretty similar to how people like go running every single weekend or day. The same thing, except mine takes 20 minutes to do a video. So it's very similar, except they probably run longer than that. So that's like exactly the kind of mentality I had. That was like the only concern I have was like, what if a client finds out? I wasn't so concerned about Accenture or my coworkers finding out. They eventually found out when they like search up Accenture or search up my name, and then they see the YouTube video pop up, but then they just talk about it very informally and they never talk about it again. But sometimes they ask me, how was your weekend? I say, oh, I filmed a few videos, and I tell them what the videos are, but then we've moved on to business. So it didn't really care too much about that.
That is very reassuring to hear, because even though I'm making it these videos, and I'm not at a professional like client facing firm. Like yeah, I used to be so nervous about it. Like so when I was at the fun, one of the songs I wrote, one of the first songs I wrote was this song called Facebook Game. It was about like hitting on girls by using Facebook. And it was like very like rom-com geeky.
Yeah.
Very embarrassing if like people at work find it. And then it got sent to a blog, and then the blog kind of got it got shared on Facebook. And then so my coworkers found out about it, and then they were supportive. And then I was like a board observer of this company. And then one of the board members, like he was one of the guys that found that invested in Facebook. And then so he like knew Mark Zuckerberg and stuff. And they were actually all really supportive.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that story, because I feel like there's so many like people that are working jobs that they're afraid of the response. So it's cool to hear you cleared everything with your work. You followed all the guidelines, and you had a response in case anyone asked, and it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, I feel like most people think the worst case scenario, you'll get fired. But in my opinion, most people don't really, like the coworkers or your team, they don't think that. They're just like, wow, props on you for taking the time to do that. I could never do that. That's like usually the first thing I hear from them. They're not going like, why don't you do more work, huh? Like this means you have free time, right? They don't think that. I thought that that's what they're thinking about, but they don't. They actually thought it was really cool. So a lot of people, I mean, I guess it depends, because if you're in a government job, that could be risky to talk about your job. So you kind of have to like be very logical or take common sense.
Yeah, for sure. Like, definitely like nothing confidential. Just keep it like industry wide.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, can we shift gears a little to the podcast? You've done, more than 60 episodes, and you're highlighting women in tech that are just super successful, killing it, just that have inspired you, that can inspire others. Like what prompted you to start that?
Yeah. So like I mentioned before, in technology consulting, I can only speak to my experience. So naturally, I don't want people to think my experience is going to be what their experience. They're going to be like, oh, so am I going to do Workday too? Am I going to just be doing like not even traveling that much? Because I see even within my same team in Workday that everyone's doing something slightly different, but they're still technology consultants. So that was one of the big reasons why I did my podcast, is that I can use my YouTube channel to talk about my experience or the people I've heard, but the podcast is where I can have other people talk about their experience. So in the past, it was mostly about how is it like in tech? How is it like in like being a woman in whatever field you're doing? So that was like probably the only time that it doesn't have to be relating to tech. My friend Michelle Lam is actually the one who's like the first episode, one of those two episodes. And it's not even relating to tech, but it was just basically a great way for me to do these interviews and learn about them. They all kind of have a similar theme though, about either tech or they're a minority, in this case being a woman, and they're kicking ass. So for me, I didn't care so much because again, this podcast is low lift. The only thing that would cost me money is really time, because these episodes take time to record versus like a video where I can just record 20 minutes and then I just get it out the door. But this episode's 20 minutes. I mean, 1 hour plus, and that's not including the coordinating with whoever they're working with to coordinate this podcast episode. And I have everything streamlined though, where I have like a Google form that I send out to every person who reaches out to me for a podcast. They fill that out, and I pretty much the questions I have for the actual podcast episodes are sometimes prepared the same day of the recording. And it's not because I'm procrastinating. Sometimes it is from procrastinating, but a lot of it is really just like, I want to keep it very organic, but at the same time, I don't want to be really rigid with having the questions and go in a particular order or go ask every single question. So a lot of times I have these questions similar like to my scripts. It's a guideline, and then I have follow-up questions. And sometimes I may even skip half the questions because it's not relevant to what this person's talking about. So these podcast episodes is really a good way for me to talk to someone, learn something about them. Sometimes they have something that like salary negotiation. I need help on that because I've only had 2 full-time jobs and I didn't negotiate my salary for both. So I still need help on that. So I just really try to pick her brain on that particular episode. And naturally, people are going to learn from that too.
So your script is, your questions are pretty like broad, and then you kind of go with the flow. You're not too strict.
Yeah. I have one question I ask everyone though, but that's like, if you had all the time in the world, what are you going to do? But everything else.
Well, actually, why don't we just, I was going to ask you that question. So if you had all the time in the world, what would you do?
There's actually like a co-working cat cafe I want to do, but this is really more like if I had all the money in the world as opposed to time. But that would be another thing I would add to the plate, given if I had the money.
Cat cafe. What would the cafe be called?
I don't know the name. I have a whole business plan written out. I just need money.
Well, I saw you invested. You interviewed some pet tech people, so maybe they can be your first angels.
Maybe.
Well, so back to the podcast. Like, so how long does it take for you to do the script, like the questions? Yeah, and I guess the editing for you, we already talked about, but like, I guess how long does it take for the research and scripting? Because I find that sometimes it takes me like too long. Like I'm like watching way too much stuff, like, and it's like I'm going way too deep, or like.
Honestly, I'm pretty impressed with how you're handling it because you clearly did your research. I 90% don't do the research. I rely on the form that they submitted. So a lot of times I'm just basing it off that form, which is essentially, it's like a PR thing anyway. So I'm not truly going super deep into the details because I don't truly know them. I don't know how far they're willing to go, but I always tell them in my episodes, like, if you want to omit something, or maybe you said something you regret, let me know. But most times they don't actually say anything that they regret. So a lot of times I open that form up, I kind of expand that all up. Usually the blurb is like this long, and I kind of dissect it and figure it out. But at the same time, I have like a previous script or like a sheet of questions I've had from someone similar. So if they're like a career coach, I open a similar career coach questions. And if I have a CEO, I open a similar CEO script. And I just kind of like basically get inspiration from both, like the form that they submit, but also the previous CEO questions. And I put that in there. And I also try to figure out what angle I can do different from this CEO versus the next CEO that I have. And I try to focus on that. So then I also, when I do the teaser, I try to focus on that tiny little snippet that makes it a little bit different. But to be honest, for me, I feel like the podcast is not that creative. This is like my last priority. I just do it for fun at this point. And also to highlight women. So a lot of times the questions I ask are just kind of impulsive on the actual call itself. Do you hear my cat?
I think your cats want the cat cafe to be open sooner. Well, actually, this is a nitty gritty podcast question. Because I saw on your channel, you had a disclaimer like, on my podcast, I allow my guests to swear because I want people to express themselves. And that's the question I've been kind of wrestling with. I'm like, oh, should I ask guests not to swear? Should I just let them swear and then put it?
I was actually going to ask you if I should swear, because there's some words where I was like trying to say it, but I'm not sure if your audience would appreciate it. So I did not.
Yeah. So how did you handle that? Like,
I'm lucky that majority of my guests don't swear, except for my very first guest, Michelle Lamb. I think she loves to swear. She's my friend, so naturally we love to swear together. But I don't like to beep it out. I just know for our YouTube policy, of course, like maybe the first few seconds, don't say anything, don't put on the title, don't put on the thumbnail. But I want them to be free about it. Like I said about the podcast episode, they're really low lift. So if I'm demonetized for that episode, I don't care. I'm just like, at this point, I'm still making podcast revenue, if anything. But the YouTube video, I don't care because I know people are not going to watch like like a 50-minute video. They're probably going to be like working out and listening to it, but it's the same way as like what you would do with this podcast. So to be honest, I don't really pay attention to the metrics for those.
Got it. So it's on YouTube. If they're swearing, you could get demonetized. But for like, if you're on Spotify, that doesn't really matter if you have an explicit or not. It's good to know. Good to know. Well, so shifting gears to monetization, I know last time we chatted, you were like super helpful sharing about like just tips on how to get sponsors, how to negotiate with them. Like, is there anything you could just share with the audience here? There's like people that are like building their channels, starting to dip their toes into sponsors. Like, what's the best way to get sponsors? Like, would you recommend outbounding to people or just letting them come to you over time?
Two answers, but to answer that exact question you just asked, I think it's really important for you to do it first. So you get the sense of how it's like and what to do. So it's very similar to like, if you were to outsource editing, you should know how to edit. So that way you can be a better instructor to that person on how you want your videos edited. Otherwise, they're going to just do it however they want, and then you're going to waste time going back and forth. So I think you really should know how to do everything yourself first before you outsource it. But of course, if you're finding that you're running out of time on certain things, then you might want to outsource starting then. But particularly for me, when it comes to sponsorships, there's two answers to that. The first thing is, I think it's really good to know your niche and your target audience, because the first question I ask, or the first question they ask me is like, what's your audience? Tell me your demographics. Like, what do they like? Because knowing that is good to figure out if the sponsor is even right for you. Like sometimes they don't even make sense, but like in the terms of who your audience is, it does make sense. For example, I have Magic Mind, who is like on adaptogenics and green tea and like a little matcha shot essentially. It does not make sense to career, but the actual audience is on productivity and it's on making sure that you can get the best out of your abilities. So naturally, it's actually very easy for me to incorporate that into a video or into a vlog, because that's exactly what my audience is looking to be, or that they currently are. And vice versa, that's exactly who I am trying to be, or that I currently am. So when I think about it that way, even though it's not directly related to career, it is related to my audience. So I think about it that way, and it makes it easier to also kind of integrate it into the video, because it is easier to do that than to have something completely unrelated that you're only doing it for the money. Then that's a lot. It's like, for the audience, they're not going to even want it. They're going to be like, why is this even here? Like, you're clearly doing it for the money, which for some people, they're going to be like, great job. I want you to get monetized. Do this. But at the same time, you're going to start to look like a sellout, that you're just doing it for the money. So I try to make sure that it at least makes sense to the audience. The other thing is, I mentioned the NFC business cards. That actually is my most successful video. It has made me a lot of income on YouTube revenue. And I got paid for the actual, like, I did a specifically one for Ovu, and that one is like the video I got paid for. And then the actual video I did with a comparison, they paid for all of the video, all the stuff that I was doing, comparing essentially. And it introduced more people to say like, hey, I love this video. Can you do more? And I had to be the one who said like, sorry, this is not my niche. I don't want to be known as the NFC business card channel. So I had to shoot them down, but I could have done it, honestly. So because of that, I was able to open doors, specifically because I just randomly reached out to their Instagram and said, hey, I'm trying to do this video. I have X, Y, and Z subscribers. My audience is this type of category, which is why I feel like this particular product does really well. And it's easy to kind of say like NFC business card, you know, I talk about networking as a big part of being a consultant, but also getting a job. It was easy to integrate that so easily. But also if I were to do a standalone video, it doesn't seem too jarring to have that, because it's still related to the general area of what my content is about. So you have to just make sure to be strategic about who you select. And you can also honestly reach out, because that was a paid collaboration. and it was one of my highest viewed videos. And it generated more people coming to my email inbox and say, hey, we want to sponsor this video. And it did. And actually, there was one particular one that was B2B. So it's a little bit different than the B2C one that I have. So I could actually make that because it's different enough that I could make a dedicated video. And that's one of my highest paid videos or highest paid sponsorships.
Got it. So you do a mix of people reaching out to you, but you also will go and write them and say, hey, this is my audience. This is where I see the fit.
Honestly, that was the first time I reached out and the last time I reached out, because now in my inbox, I get flooded with a lot of them, and I have to be strategic about what I say yes to, because in the past, I would say yes if it's like a free thing. And then now I'm like, okay, you have to pay me to do it, even on top of what you're providing for free. So there's some things though that I see the dollar value of the item. For example, my Hydro gun I use after my workouts. They did not pay me for that video, but the Hydro gun's worth $300. I don't want to pay for a $300, $400 Theragun. I'm going to do it. It's like, no, it's like, I'm already doing a vlog. It's easy to integrate. Why not? And then also our blender broke a year ago. And then this company reached out to me to review their blender. I did it. So I was like, I want a blender. I would have spent $30 on a blender. I got it for free. And not to mention, it was easy to integrate it, because it has to still make sense. You know, it doesn't have to, if it was like, I don't know, like a leapfrog program for kids. I don't have kids. It wouldn't make sense, but a blender is easy for me to integrate to be like a high performing work professional. So why not?
It's like, oh, today I made my breakfast smoothie to get my energy before my meeting. So I use this new blender. Cool. Well, yeah. Any tips for like how to negotiate with sponsors? Cause I feel like a lot of the times creators, like if it's someone's first time talking to a sponsor, the sponsors talk to hundreds of creators, right? So they know exactly how to get the most value for them. But then a single person might not know how, like they might not know their value to the sponsor, which could be immense, right? If they have a clear target audience, it would give them tons of awareness or conversion, whatever the sponsor wants. But like, yeah, any tips for kind of helping a new creator negotiate?
Yeah. So for me particularly, the first thing I think of is, does this even make sense? Because if it makes sense to me, then it makes sense to them on why I am valuable to them. So for example, I have one that I'm still debating if I want to do this. It's a pet portrait one. Like for me, I have value in it, but does my channel, does my audience care about that? I do have some like rover and cat related content, but I mean, honestly, I'm still debating if I want that, because I selfishly want it. But at the same time, I need to make sure, is the quality worth it, versus if I pay for the one I actually want, is it worth doing that collaboration? So you have to be very cognizant about your brand, what you're trying to offer to the table to your audience and also to yourself. Like for example, the blender, that was an off chance. I would not have said yes, but I wanted a blender, so I got it. So I had to be very picky about that. And it's okay to be picky. So when you're proposing your value, if you know your value to them based off of like how they fit into your content or your strategy, you can propose that. And the question I always ask first, even if they don't provide a number, is what's your budget? And I learned this from a lot of Clubhouse rooms. And I also learned this from a lot of videos from people saying like, don't give a number. It's almost like similar to salary negotiation. Don't give a number. Ask them what's their range, what's their budget. And then you can have a sense if that falls into their range. And sometimes if they give me a very low number, like if someone just gave me a very low number and I said like, sorry, that's not in my price range compared to the other offerings I've done. And right now I still don't provide a number. Then they said, so what is your number? And I can highball it and it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, if they walk away, I don't care. I have my full-time job to rely on. It's not the money I'm feeding my cats with. So that's like a really good reassurance that I can be picky and I can also negotiate higher. So then only after when they ask me for my budget, I know from my going rates at this point, that's actually a good way to have a sense of like what I'm worth to people, is that I'm asking people like, what's your budget? And then they give me a certain range. I'm noticing the range is going up as I do certain things or doing certain content. So I'm getting that trend of like, okay, if I do vlogs, they would do this. And I also know the right questions to ask. Do you want a video integration? Do you want a full-fledged video? Are you trying to do comparison? Are you trying to do something that's more organic where it doesn't feel like a sponsorship? Is this exclusive? And there was one where they were trying to make me be exclusive to them. And I was like, sorry, but if you want me to be exclusive, you have to like completely raise the price a lot more. And that's also something I learned on Clubhouse, is that look at all the legal terms and clauses of the actual contract. They might say, oh, we want this this in for perpetuity. So now your content's going to be used for the rest of their lives of the company. And you don't want to do that because they just paid for cheap labor. If you were to pay a company to do a commercial, it's going to be a lot more than what they're paying you. So you have to think about it that way, that at the end of the day, yes, like money is money, but you have to think about they can also be exploiting you because you are cheap labor. Comparatively may not be cheap, but to them, like a video production team to make like commercials could take thousands of dollars, but they're paying you hundreds, maybe tens of dollars. Maybe they'll just do affiliate marketing, but it's still your time. So you have to be very cautious about that. So it's okay. I mean, I guess it depends, because if it's your full-time job and you're only doing YouTube, you might feel pressure to say yes because you need that income. But that's where you should start diversifying your income anyways, if you're really relying on just one income stream. So it's okay for you to be very artful about what you're saying yes to. And then from there, you can learn from there of like, oh, these places have said yes to me. And sometimes I pay attention to the verbiage. If they say, oh, we can do that, and there's no resistance, I'm like, okay, maybe I lowball the
Should ask higher.
Yeah. But I mean, at that point, I'm like, I'm not going to ask higher. It's just not going to be good faith, good faith there. So I just know next time I'll ask higher, or I'll say like, if you want me to go higher, I could do an Instagram reel. I could do a Facebook live. If I do anything like that, I don't do that. I could do a podcast integration. I could do a post on Instagram. I could do a video integration. I could do a dedicated video. So you have a media kit talking about like, here's what you can offer. So that's why diversifying does help too. But I also found that very annoying because I started to like do Instagram reels. I did Instagram posts. I did LinkedIn posts. I did all of this and I got really burnt out. I cut all of that down. If you know, go on my Instagram, I haven't done anything in months. So I also scaled back in podcasts. But this means that your YouTube channel or whatever you're focusing on and that you did not remove is more valuable to the audience, which means you can hike the price a little bit higher. So you have to really know your worth based off of what you're doing and what they see, because everything's a business, which is great because I'm a business-minded person to begin with. So I already see what they're thinking before I even did all these Clubhouse rooms about what they're looking for. So it was easy to kind of talk in their own language. And I mean, honestly, consulting is all about like proposing your value in the way that they should like it. So I did the same thing, but just for myself.
I love it. Yes. So it sounds like it's know your audience.
Yep.
And know your value. And you kind of learn that by seeing kind of what offers and bids you get over time and like the resistance or lack of it, knowing the sponsor, like how you can really help them. Yeah. Cause when I was doing marketing at the startup, we would actually approach I was on the other end of it. And the way I thought of it was like, okay, are we doing this for awareness? Or are we doing it for actual conversions of purchases? And it's like, it's probably this podcast. Okay. It's probably going to be awareness. So these are the CPMs that we're getting when we're talking all these podcasts. And so we kind of triangulated our own little like CPMs, and we would look at their following and downloads and then how that might convert to awareness or like a conversion. But like, do you have any metrics like in that, a range that you've seen or understand from like the Clubhouse chats, like of what creators at different sizes could get? Or is it more like you just got to talk to them and feel it out?
You just have to talk to them and feel them out, because to be honest, those people in the Clubhouse rooms, they have like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. So naturally it's not the same ballpark. So, and not to mention, I was already in a niche that was very specific that wasn't already in there. Like I'm in the career niche, I'm in the tech niche, but tech consulting is still a very specific niche that hasn't been saturated. So naturally my value proposition is very unique too. So I have to also be very cognizant about my audience. So when I have those calls with people and I also read the comments, and if you look at my comments, like I respond back to every single person, even on non-related tech consulting content. So I have a sense of the questions they ask. That's actually where I get a lot of my ideas for my videos too. But I also have an idea of like what kind of demographic they are, what kind of mindset are they, what stage in life are they. And actually when I was planning my YouTube channel, I planned this all out, like a branding, what do they call it? Like a branding guide of like, I want to be that tech sister, that tech older sister. And that was the kind of vibe I wanted to be. So naturally, I'm not going to be that professor, because I knew what kind of persona I was going to be for my specific audience. And I had like a primary market and a secondary market. I did very businessy. I wanted to do that. It was fun. But that's where it actually helped a lot, because when I hear people saying like they're trying to do X, Y, and Z, it doesn't seem targeted. It doesn't seem strategic, but you have to be strategic. You have to be intentional with everything you do. Otherwise, it's just going to look like you're doing things for fun, which I am doing things for fun. But if you really want it to take off the ground and you really want to make sure you're seeing results, you have to be very strategic with what you see in your analytics, what story they tell, but also on what you personally want to do. Because even if your data analytics are saying like, look, you're failing in this niche, but you want to be in that niche, maybe it's just telling you to pivot. So you have to pivot. And then you can also think about what are the topics that people like in this particular area. And there's a lot of research that goes into that. For me, all of the ideas are coming from comments at this point, but my first few was really questions I get from students, and then some research that I did from like what people are searching on Google or on YouTube and tags that they put in. So that's where I first started off. But like vice versa, you can reverse engineer it for sponsorships too, on how to network. And then all of a sudden the NFC business card is a perfect integration because it is about networking. So it's not directly related to how to network, but it could be used as an integration. There's actually a video I have tomorrow that is like a perfect integration. It came at the perfect time. That was like, how do I be a technology consultant with no experience? And then the exact, like the collaboration came into my inbox. Like, this is perfect. I did not plan it, but it came at the very time. It worked just right there.
Yeah, I love how you're applying like your consulting brain and mindset, problem solving, like all those mental models to like being a creator. It's awesome to hear. Like if someone like, and I struggle with this a lot myself, and I know a lot of my like other creator friends do too. Like I know for me, I want to do things I enjoy. I want to help people. I want to make money from being a creator so I can keep doing the things I enjoy and care about. Like, what would be your advice on being strategic? And if that's kind of like the broad context,
like you want to
like
do
what should someone like me or someone that's kind of has those goals, what should they prioritize with like taking their channel to another level?
I think at first, like the first few times, have fun with whatever you're trying to do, so you can get your feet wet in anything and everything. Which is why in the first beginnings, you could see like content on boba and content on my cats, and I was still learning at the time, and I wanted to feel like I was having some kind of value. Like even if no one's watching the video, I personally would like having that video out because I did that. I did this because I wanted it. Then after that, you could start to be strategic as to like, okay, how do I actually see my channel going from here? Do I actually want to just make it all over the place, or do I want to be very directed? Because there's a way to do that without losing fun. Because the way I do things, I still have content on tech and careers, and I love to talk about that, but I don't like to talk about that 24/7. So I have content that I use as well, like travel vlogs, or talking about my rover cat sitting, or talk about my side hustles as like a tiny little subset, but then focus on my niche. So that way when people, and I also like make sure when my page is very strategic too, that like I have all my niched playlists up at the top, and then all the others, if you're interested and you scroll down, you can watch those videos. But I'm not solely relying on like, oh my God, this video plummeted. I can tell honestly when I look at my analytics, the tech consulting, the tech career ones do really well, but like my podcast episodes can get like 10 views and I don't care. But it's really a mindset thing. I don't care about that, so naturally I won't get upset of that. So naturally I will keep going regardless of that. So you just have to keep pushing.
Well, I love how you put everything. We chatted last time. Like, I loved how you put everything in one channel, right? Your tech consulting,
Yeah.
your Seattle vlog, your cat videos. Like, do you find that people unsubscribe, or like some people won't click on, like a tech consultant follower wouldn't click on the Seattle vlog, or they would be like, "What the heck?" Because I just put out. Because a lot of my content's been more about helping creators, but I started putting out some investment banking resume tip videos, which is like not exactly the same. And and I think the video has not done that well. And my hypothesis is because like my creator subscribers like, what the heck is this? So the click-through rate's not that high, the retention's bad. Yeah. So have you managed kind of like jamming different topics together?
Yeah, actually the feedback I had was really on like the exact same one I said before. Go to my YouTube page and you would have all the playlists there already. So if let's say they watched my video on technology consulting, they go to my channel, they're like, should I subscribe to this person? And they see all these playlists on technology consulting. They know, okay, she has content on there. Even if I don't have new content on it, I have past content they can benefit from. And this is only something that you have to keep on making content to get to this point. If you just stop because you're just like, oh, you know, this is not getting anywhere, it's going to get somewhere eventually. You just have to trust the system, trust the process. So for me, because of that, it's easier to get subscribers, even if I'm not making technology consulting content, because they're watching one video that popped up on their page, or that they are searching something and it popped up on their search results. Then they go to my channel and see other content. Then they subscribe, even though I could be like doing 4 videos about the wedding proposal or something like that. Not relevant, but still I have other content. But naturally, I have to be very considerate that for new content, particularly, I still have to have technology consulting content. So when people see it pop up on their feed, they're like, oh, Christine's still doing it. Okay, I won't unsubscribe if I keep seeing new content that's not relevant to what I'm thinking. So I have to be very strategic. I know majority of my content or majority of my audience likes technology consulting and tech careers, so I have to focus on that. But everything else is just like, it's at the end of the day, it's my personal channel. I don't care if you unsubscribe. So I could just put whatever I want anyways. And if you unsubscribe, sure, at least you got your value out of it and you're done. But one thing I also thought about too is like the 2 demographics I have of my audience on the tech consulting spectrum is someone trying to get into technology consulting, which they find through my YouTube channel, and then they message me on LinkedIn, or they tell me like, oh, look, I got a job thanks to you, blah, 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 blah. The other one is, what if you got a job? Now what? Like, you're not going to be looking at videos on how to get a job at technology consulting. So they might be inclined to watch my other videos now because they don't want to watch about work. They're doing it on their day-to-day anyway. So there's 2 different mindsets there. So it's okay to kind of stray away, just not too much.
Got it. And like when people start reaching out to you, like how do you kind of scale your time? Because when I know you want to be helpful, but at the same time, you have to live your life, right? And like do the things you need to do in your life. Like how do you, because sometimes I'll have people reaching out to me and I want to help, but then at times it's like, I actually am underwater with my normal stuff. So like, how do you, manage that when so many people are reaching out to you?
I was pulling up this exact template that I had on my phone. I copy and paste it and I send it. There's literally like a, hey, XXX, I changed their name. That's it. And then if they want it, and what that actual text says is like, go to the Facebook group, ask your question there. More people are going to benefit from it. Or fill out the form for the free career coaching, and that's going to be content. So there's a 2 thing there. Like, number 1, I can help you. I can help other people who are going to watch this video. And 3, I get content. And then the other one is like, if you want to ask through text, I'm happy to answer that, because if I do a call, I'm locking down time. If I do text, I can just like, oh, if I have 10 minutes to spare, go into my LinkedIn, respond, done. But otherwise, if they ask like, how do I get a job in technology consulting? I have a whole playlist on that. I just send a playlist and say, okay, watch the videos. And then if you have questions, let me know. And usually they don't ask questions because it's pretty much answered everything.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You're scaling time like crazy and helping so many people. Well, so just kind of overall YouTube advice before we get to the rapid fires. What are 3 of the best things that you've done for your YouTube channel? Like looking back, like you.
I think being strategic, and this is like pretty much what I've been saying this entire episode, is be strategic, know what you want, but also know what the audience wants. You have to have an idea of your audience. I had like 2 people say this on Clubhouse, and honestly, that's where I got a lot of my information on top of the YouTube channels that I see on YouTube creation is, number 1, have a niche, or know your audience and then create your content around that audience. And that's what I did, because I knew I'm not the type of person to just do the niche. It's hard for me to figure out content to do every single week on that particular topic without getting burnt out, without getting sick of it, because I do this on my day-to-day, and then I'm doing this on the weekends too. Like, no. So I want to balance it out with things I want, but also content that I feel like I am passionate about, even though it's career related, because I'm really passionate about career related stuff anyways. So that was like a big thing, is be strategic, but also be kind to yourself about what kind of content you want. It's okay to kind of stray. It's not a big deal. I mean, I guess the only big deal is like if you have YouTube or podcast, it's like your full-time job, but that's why you diversify your income. So it's fine then. So for me particularly, that's that. The second was diversify your income, exactly what I said. So there's no pressure on saying yes to sponsorship or making sure that you have a lot of ad revenue on this, my cat here, and a lot of ad revenue on this particular episode, or on like when people subscribe, what does that look like to sponsors? Like, I don't pay attention to that. To me, honestly, I'm very surprised that at 7,000 subscribers, I'm getting the sponsors that I'm getting. So I was like, wow, I honestly thought I have to be like 100,000 to get this number of sponsorships. I'm saying more no's than I am saying yes, which is pretty cool. You also have to suss out all the spam ones because you have to look at the domain. And if it's like some weird random domain, I'm like, I'm not answering it because it's probably spam. It's probably some kind of crawler
Phishing,
or robot that's doing this. Yeah. So I'm not doing that. So you have to be very cautious. Look at that. But that's where my tech background came in. I knew exactly what to look for cybersecurity. And then the other one is just like in general, I feel like you have to have fun because a lot of times it's, yes, press record so you can at least get the hang of it. But at the same time, do it for the right reasons. If you're doing it for fame, if you're doing it for money, you're going to die or you're going to burn out or your channel's going to die really quickly. But you need to make sure that you are genuinely in it for the right reasons. I think there's like some ways though that some people use YouTube as a way to serve as a promotional purpose for their business. But you also have to find value as to like why this is important for your business in this kind of case, because I actually found 2 rover clients through my rover sitting like video. And at first I was like, I at first put my profile on there so other rover sitters can learn from me, but I got clients from it. And I kind of don't like that because now they know where I live. And I'm like, I'm not sure about that. So, but at the same time, I literally published it. So I can't be angry about it. I'm making money from this. So I have to be very strategic about that too. Safety is really important. Like whenever I see someone like see me on the subway or they see me on the streets and say, hey, are you the one that makes YouTube? I have to make sure I'm not actually that close to my home because you never know. There's creepers out there. So that's just like probably a lot of the advice I have for new creators or creators that are lost, I guess.
I love it. I love it. And is there any one thing that, like, I guess the biggest lesson you learned through your YouTube journey, like a mistake or just something you've learned that you're like, okay, now I'm this is the controllable factor. I'm going to up level here.
Biggest mistake.
Or just huge lesson, just like something like if you were starting today, you wish someone told you.
I honestly feel like I am doing exactly what I would have done. Learn from every single small mistake and then just build off of that. I don't have any big mistakes because I've learned it already in a smaller scale. And that's actually a good thing because we're small. So it doesn't matter if we messed up. We're not like betting our entire careers on this. We're not losing millions of subscribers or followers on this. We're small. It's fine, which is why I like don't really give a fuck, honestly. I mean, sorry about that. Honestly, I don't care because we're so small. It's a good and a bad thing because you can get away with a lot. But at the same time, it's fine that you're small. Like don't compare yourself to those that are like hundreds of thousands or millions of subscribers. Compare yourself to yourself because that's why I look at my niche. Like if I compare myself to others, my niche is very specific. I can't compare myself to management consulting. So naturally, who am I going to compare myself to? Myself. I have only my data to speak for itself or my audience. So I think like for people who are in niches where it's a little bit more broad, where you can go a little bit further, specialize a little bit more maybe, or focus on your audience, like maybe your lifestyle, but like who are you tailoring to? Are you talking to a 15-year-old boy? Are you talking to a 60-year-old mom? Like very specific. What do they care about their lives? What walk of life are they in right now? Tailor to that, because I bet you, even though your lifestyle, it's a big niche, but you have a very unique audience because of who you are or what you offer. So for me, I had to be like, compare myself to myself. And at the same time, I don't care because I have a full-time job. So it's probably unique to that. If you're looking to have a side hustle or you're looking to do YouTube, I guess that's what would help. But if you're trying to do YouTube full-time, my response is probably not what you're looking for. Or maybe it will help out. I don't know. But for me, I didn't care.
I love it. Learn from your mistakes and just learn as quickly as you can so they don't become big ones. I like that. Yeah. Well, so rapid fire, what's your favorite piece of YouTube gear?
My DJI Pocket, it's right here. It's so compact. I use it because it actually has a little gimbal. So when I do my videos, I think you see my first Norway vlogs. They're so shaky. This one helps a lot because it's very smooth. I mean, I'm still learning with this too, because sometimes I go a little bit too fast. It just looks like a bunch of blur. You don't see anything. But in post production, I just cut that out. I'm like, wow, I wasted footage on that. But at the same time, a lot of times I'm trying to focus on enjoying what I'm doing too. So I'm not focusing on filming. I'm focusing on looking, and then eventually whatever I capture on the camera is what I use. So if I'm snowmobiling, I'm not going to be like focusing on camera. I'm going to focus on making sure I don't die. And then the camera just comes second. And I have like a DJI action cam for that, which is pretty cool too. And I'm really excited for that one because I can take footage of my cats being cats.
I love it. I have my DJI on my desk too. For
Oh,
so I feel you on the pocket. Okay. And then favorite book you read in the last year?
I am not really a reader anymore because I have to commute. So I actually listen to audibles on my commute or on my walks to and fro, everything. I actually do that instead. But the book that I don't have a favorite this year because it's only March right now. But the book I'm reading right now is How Not to Die. And this is a very health related kind of video. I mean, not video, book.
How Not to Die. Okay. I've been reading How Not to Die Alone, but I guess there's a book called How Not to Die.
It's How Not to Die by Michael Grieger, MD. So it's a doctor, and Gene Stone.
Nice. Health. Okay. And then if you've taken any courses, do you have any favorites from the last like 12 months?
I'm not taking any courses. I mean, the only courses I take is at Google, and that's like mandatory. like EI and sexual harassment. Those are the only courses I've taken the past year, to be honest. Unless you count fitness courses, but I don't think you're talking about those.
Okay. And if your place was burning down, and assuming your family and cats are safe, what 3 things would you grab first?
Honestly, I guess my wallet, because I need to buy food. I'm assuming, what's the situation? Is it like an apocalypse where that I can just grab all the food? But otherwise I'd probably grab my wallet, like for practical reasons. I need to buy food. I need to buy litter. I need to buy literally everything for my cats and myself. So that's a simple one. I don't honestly care about my phone, to be honest, as long as I have internet. So honestly, the wallet's like the only thing, especially like all I care about is my cats and myself and my family, of course. So to be honest, everything else is fine.
Love it. Love it. And then is there like a quote that you really like, a favorite quote?
I had a yearbook quote that I really like from Jeff Bezos, but now I'm not a fan of Jeff Bezos. So not really. I don't really have a quote I live by.
Okay. Okay. And then what video that you've made are you the most proud of making? Or what's one video that you're proud of?
There was one particular video on talking about my Asian American experience, because I feel like during that time, it wasn't really something that was spoken about. Everything, I think all the influencers that were Asian American were talking about it, but I wanted to be able to be unhinged on my perspective on what was my experience, because everyone thinks that, oh, like Asians had it easy. You're a model minority. Like you, I don't know, get 100% on math. You can go to Harvard, but that's not the case. Like you saw, I did not get a 4.0 GPA. How did I do it? How did everyone else that wasn't that model do? So that was like probably a video that I was really happy and proud of to do. It wasn't fun filming it because I had 3 other Asian Americans with me, and it was like kind of depressing, to be honest, to talk about this, because of like, we shared this experience, but it's not the best experience. What a bad way to end this.
No. Well, that leads me to the next question. What's one of your favorite comments that you remember getting?
I don't have a favorite, but I have a favorite type, which is basically whenever someone said, thanks to your video, I got a job. And I was like, wow, I made something in 20 minutes and I just kind of like crapshoot it. I edited for like very little time and effort, and I got someone a job out of it. Like, wow, that's scalable, because if I were to focus one-on-one on a coaching call, I only help that one person, but my video may have helped people that I don't even know. Like maybe were not gutsy enough to leave a comment, but I've helped someone. So that was really happy.
Love it. And just for a final takeaway for that one person that's out there listening today, like what is the one thing that you hope they take away from our whole conversation?
I'm trying to say something that I haven't heard other people say. Like the first thing I thought of was like, have fun. but everyone says that.
It's a good one. That's a really good one.
And if honestly, my own friends are probably like, Christine, do you even have fun? So it's not really a good question or a good one to say. Like in my mind, I'm having fun. In their mind, I'm not having fun. So it's like, it's all, the perspective is different. But I think it's really, okay, I guess I have one that is be unapologetically you, because there's something about you that's special, that's different. You might think that you're very basic or like everyone's like you, but there's something about you that's different, and then lean into that either at your career, even if like you're doing such a professional job and you're quirky, maybe lean into that a little bit, honestly, like in a different way. Of course, you don't want to go completely quirky, but you want to make sure that you bring that to the table, because a lot of times I have a perspective that people are like, really, Christine, like you're the one that said it, but everyone was thinking it, but no one said it. And there's sometimes where there's experiences where everyone was thinking it, but no one said it. But I was like, I'll do it. I'll say it. Like, I don't care. Honestly, if you watch that video, like how I not give a fuck, like that's one of the things I do in my job too, is like, I don't care. I'm going to do it. Like the first few months of my job at Google, I was already organizing something for the holiday party. Like most nooglers don't do that. They like probably take 5 years before they start doing that. They're not like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to get funding. I don't know who to talk to. I'm just like, why not? Like everyone's going to start somewhere. Like someone who's 5 years down the line at Google still going to have to start somewhere. They're going to have to figure out all that anyway. So all I'm here is excuses. So naturally, like for me, I know that I'm a person who just I like to take really calculated risks. I don't like to take risks. I like to take calculated risks. So I make sure I do all my research. Like I said, be strategic, do all your research, do all your data. And then from there, just kind of like go from there. You're like, once you channel that in, and this goes for a career, this goes for YouTube, this goes for your personal life, then just channel it. But of course, like I still have issues when keeping it reined in, because sometimes I say something that could be canceled or do something that people are going to question. But for me, I'm like, I'm myself. So even if you're attacking me, like I don't take it seriously, because they just see one side of it. They don't see everything.
I love it. I love it. Be unapologetically you. And so we've talked a lot about the audience. They know about your YouTube channel, your Chatting with Christine podcast, Badass Woman in Tech, and your technology consulting community on Facebook. What's the best way for them to find out more about those or to connect with you, all the communities you're a part of?
I promote pretty much everything on my Instagram, Christine.innovates, and my LinkedIn's more professional. If you care more about the professional content or me as a professional, just connect with me there. But my YouTube's for anything YouTube related. But Instagram is like probably where I put all of my updates or announcements, regardless of what platform it is. And I honestly haven't really done that many Instagram stories, just because I don't care to, and I don't have much to share there. But usually if I have something personal, that's the first place. Like for example, the engagement or the proposal, I posted it there before anywhere else.
All right. Christine.innovates out on Instagram. That's where you get the hot, fresh takes. Well, final question. And I got this one from your podcast is how can we support what you're doing?
I guess just like two things. One is help someone in however way you can. You might feel like you're helpless, but you can't really do anything. Oh my God, my cat. But like there's definitely a way you can help someone. You have something to help people with, either in career, in personal life, and maybe taking care of someone's cat. There's a lot of different things you can do. And naturally, you're going to feel good about it anyway, so you don't feel too bad about it. The other thing is that just try to do what you want to do without worrying about what people want you to do. Because if I did that, I would not be where I am today. If I listened to everything that my parents said or all of my naysayers said. And he says to do that.
Love it. Mic drop right there. All right. Well, thank you so much, Christine, for taking the time and dropping all these gems for us. And thank you, everyone that's out there listening. And thanks again, Christine.
Source says bye.